Welcome to the Bitcoin Source. We have another episode here today. I'm super excited. Can you start off by introducing yourself to the audience and to the world?
Yeah, but thank you very much for having me on your platform. My name is Guantai Kathurima, but I go by Master Guantai on social media. I'm a Bitcoin Maximalist from Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes, Master Gunto, I thank you for that introduction. And, I told you off air that, Alex from, Lilac from Rise Up Media really kind of pushed me in a direction to talk to you. So I was super excited. And the first thing I really wanted to ask you was, where did you source your Bitcoin knowledge from? How did you get introduced to Bitcoin? Because I know you're in Africa, so I'm always excited to talk to people living on the continent, and I'm always curious to know how they were orange pilled. So if you could kind of give us a background story of how you got started in Bitcoin and like what inspired you to do so.
For me, my journey down the Bitcoin rabbit hole is basically from uni. I decided to join the Kenya Navy, which is a branch of the Kenya Defense Forces, or military here in Kenya. So I did a couple of years in the military, and then I decided to just broaden my horizons by looking for another career path in which that how can I put it, I'll be my own boss. So that route for me was I got interested in forex trading actually. So I studied forex for a couple of months, and then I got some capital to like trade like real money. And unfortunately, I ended up losing like a couple of $1,000. So, but that didn't really like dampen my spirits. I was very determined like to be a profitable trader. So from a certain YouTube channel, I started like very diligently learning the skill, and then like now it's transitioned on to that educator now talking about cryptocurrencies. So I'd heard about cryptocurrencies, but for him specifically, he started talking about Bitcoin. So when I learned about Bitcoin, for me, as an individual, it didn't really click like from the first time I heard about it. But it led me towards like studying the actual like, monetary system that we use in the world. Like I was very shocked to discover that I didn't know like I knew, yes, like the Kenya shilling is backed by the US dollar, yes. But I didn't know like the Fed was a private bank. So like all of the knowledge that I didn't know, and how like the dollar was coming from the gold standard to the fiat standard, that kind of education led me to realize that actually the current fiat-based monetary system has a lot of people at a disadvantage to the lack of knowledge. And now that is when like really Bitcoin clicked to me that now this is the way to go, specifically as a money. Yes.
Talking to people, I always, like I said, I've always loved to talk to people in Africa because I think when you're looking at first world countries, the US, Canada, even some places in Europe, I think that the approach to Bitcoin is completely different than it is in Africa. I think people in Africa absolutely need Bitcoin. It is a great remittances technology. It's also a great peer-to-peer technology because the inflation rate is so high in a lot of these African countries that the price of bread or the price of rice could change dramatically within a few hours or a few days. You go to the market one day, it's one price. You come back the next day, it's another price. And so many people are already using like you know, debit cards, credit cards, some form of digital cash. I'm sure Kenya does that as well. And a lot of people don't use cash, for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of crime. You mentioned poverty and crime. And I wanted to ask you, like, I know you went into the military, but a lot of the young men in Kenya, like, are they focused on trying to be educated and learning about Bitcoin, or are they trying to go into the military? Like, what is the scene for the young individuals in Kenya that want to learn about Bitcoin, but they don't really have any outlets? And I know they have Paxful, Bitnob, Kala, a lot of these different institutions that are really trying to push and adopt Bitcoin on the continent. But of course, it's not fully ubiquitous everywhere. So I just wanted to know like your thoughts and to let the audience know about the real Kenya, not the Kenya they see on TV, but someone that's actually living in the country. Could you kind of expound on that?
Yes, one thing I love the most about being a Kenyan is the Kenyan like kind of hustler, entrepreneurial, like go get it spirit. Because we actually had this conversation on one of the Twitter space. So I had some fellow Bitcoiners, some brothers from Uganda asking like, why do I think like in East Africa being Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and Ethiopia in Southern Sudan, why is it that it seems it's Kenya who's like always pushing the needle, always leading the charge from the front? So a lot of youth in Kenya, yes, it is unfortunate that unemployment is a real thing, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of very many highly educated like youth in Kenya, and very like a lot of like different skills, different talents. You have like very good musicians, very good like people like they can paint, do this and that, different crafts, that kind of thing. So the best part about this is for Kenyan youths are very, very exposed. When I say exposed is we concentrate on, let's say, our political scene, what is happening in Kenya, in East Africa, in the larger Africa, but we are also very cognizant to know what is happening like predominantly in the States and in Europe. And that comes from the music we listen to, Netflix and chill and that kind of thing. So having bearing that in mind, also when it comes to like financial technologies like Bitcoin, people can actually, a lot of young people, especially in like the cities, I can say, are very forward looking to get solutions which work for them. Because if I can give you one example, when it comes to payments, like when you're doing like, let's say I'm a Kenyan painter or I'm a musician, I want to get my craft out there, I have this and this resource someone can make for me, maybe a website. I know that a lot of people have very many horror stories about PayPal. Like you did this and this job, maybe I edited some content for your podcast, and then when you paid me, I was not in a position to withdraw my cash because they are asking for KYC after KYC after KYC, like a lot of nonsense, and I've done nothing wrong. But they fully understand that with Bitcoin you have like instant settlement, there's the privacy part of it, there's the sovereignty that you have, that regardless of, maybe let's say, uh, maybe you may have some like political scuffle here and there, the government of the day cannot actually do anything to come and take your wealth from you. And let's say, God forbid, something happens which actually forces you to move like from a certain town you live in to another place just for you to be safe, you actually like go with your wealth. So a lot of Kenyan youth are very enterprising, and they fully realize that despite even like our education system being that there are several courses being offered like at tertiary academic institutions, like let's say a degree in BCom or BA, or being a teacher, of which you're going to the university as a first year to learn something, to learn, like to study, and then with the hopes of graduating to be a teacher. But at the same time, they're like X thousand number of teachers who are in Kenya who cannot find gainful employment, either by the government in government schools or in the private sector. So you can find someone who is fully educated, they are a teacher, maybe they even have their masters, but they are very open to knowing that, okay, there's this new technology which has come. It is beneficial not only to myself, to my family, and my fellow countrymen, and Africa at large. So how can I like learn about Bitcoin, be self-taught like I did, like through podcasts, through like you can read books, blogs, that kind of thing, and then incorporate the skills and the talents I have, and incorporate them with the Bitcoin knowledge I have to offer something of value to the Bitcoin space internationally. Yes.
I'm glad that I have someone like you on that can really show the world that Bitcoin is super needed in places like Kenya, and it can really help with, the massive unemployment and people not really having a rhyme or reason to why they're getting educated or why they're trying to get a job. They really can't rely on the government in a lot of cases. And the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that Bitcoin opens the opportunity, whether it's mining Bitcoin, creating peer-to-peer transaction boutiques. There's so many different ways that you can use Lightning, for example. You can have a Lightning, wallet server where you can charge people to use Lightning on your server. There's a lot of different opportunities that you can do with Bitcoin, especially in Africa where people don't have access to a lot of good resources and jobs. So I'm just grateful to hear you tell the world like, Bitcoin is very important in Kenya. And my next question to you, Guntai, is what do you think about Bitcoin? The price is kind of going back up. I think we hit 28,000 recently. And, I just want to know, like, what are your thoughts about Bitcoin within the next few months and where do you think it's going to go, especially being in Africa? I know I've heard some people say that live in Nigeria and some other places that they've marked up extra fees on top of Bitcoin. So if the price is 27,000 in the US, it might cost 38,000 as an all-time high in Africa, or 40,000. So, what is your thoughts on Bitcoin right now?
Like the most interesting part from specifically a Kenyan perspective is like right around when the pump came, like in the price, is when like the Kenyan shilling is at its lowest of its lowest point, because like we just had our elections, like let's say 2 or 3 like 4 or 5 months ago. Before the elections, let's say $1 was equivalent to, let's say, 110 to 120 Kenya shillings, right? But right now, when the Bitcoin like pump started, right now we are talking about $1 being equivalent to 145 Kenya shillings. So you find that the Kenyan currency is going down and Bitcoin is pumping at the same time. So that only goes to incentivize, like even like the way we are just talking about, to actually like see the benefit in being paid in Bitcoin. Because like if you gave me a job on your podcast 1.5 weeks ago, and I was supposed to receive my payment maybe today, we were talking about the Bitcoin price maybe being at 21 or whatever thousand in terms of dollars, and the Kenya shillings what at this other price, let's say 120, 130. But right now the Bitcoin price has gone higher and my Kenya shilling has gone lower. So when, let's say, you send me X amount of Bitcoin and I decide to save Y amount of Bitcoin for me to be for the remainder to be Z, when I actually convert that Bitcoin to like a stable coin like USDT to get dollars, so that now like I can transfer it to my local currency, which is the Kenyan shilling, I'm actually getting more money than we actually agreed with you for it to be like the compensation for the work I did. So it is a win-win when it comes to me specifically earning in Bitcoin, regardless of the third world country you are in. That is the one unique aspect that earning in Bitcoin in a third world country has over like someone in like your part of the world, let's say. And then the other thing is, from really as a Bitcoin maxi, like you, from a personal standpoint, is just having the conviction that yes, like it's going to the moon. So regardless of the price action, I can't say like, let's say if you have like a 50% dump, I won't start saying like I'm starting Monero Mtaani or Ethereum Mtaani. I'm in Bitcoin for the long haul. So regardless of the price action, from a personal perspective, for me personally as Master Guantai, as a Bitcoin maxi, the price is not like really all of that. Like I don't have sleepless nights or wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is look at the price. But also I must mention that to be very, very honest, is when now we come to speak from a business perspective, like actually running like something like Bitcoin Mtaani, Yes, for me, I learned this like kind of the hard way. Like you find maybe you got a certain investment when Bitcoin was at level X, and then it came down to Y. So, like just having that personal conviction to have like a vast majority of the company's holdings in Bitcoin acted to be detrimental to serve when it comes to servicing the day-to-day costs of actually running the company as an enterprise, because you have service providers to pay, maybe you have some merchandise to produce, that kind of deal. So from that perspective, that is why like I appreciate companies like Blockstream, like what they're doing with Liquid BTC. So like when you actually like when you use the Jade wallet, you have actually or the Blockstream Jade like the app on your phone, you actually have like the choice to have a certain amount of this in liquid Bitcoin and a certain amount of this in um, in Bitcoin itself, as per your personal preference or the business you are running. Yes.
Yeah, and it sounds like to me one of the biggest issues is getting those on and off ramps. So once you gain some Bitcoin, liquidating that Bitcoin into whatever fiat currency it may be, whether it's Kenyan or the Naira or some of these other different currencies, it seems like Africans are still relying on stable coins to kind of use that as a middleman to get the Bitcoin into a traditional currency. And it just gives me a thought about there's so many talented people in Africa. There's so many talented engineers in Africa that one day that someone could actually build a stable coin for Africa that converts all the different African currencies, once they liquidate from Bitcoin into some form of stable coin that will allow people to just use it digitally pair to pair. I think that would be a huge game changer, and it would remove a lot of the confusion, the fees, and just the disconnection between Bitcoin or like what Kara is doing, Central African Republic. Um, just get on a Bitcoin standard. But there's so many different politics between different countries. I'm sure the Kenyan government is not thinking that far ahead right now about creating a Bitcoin only legal tender in the country. But of course, as Bitcoiners, we know if Africa just went legal tender for all the different countries, it would make the lives of millions upon billions of Africans so much easier, safer, and easier to transact. And it would open up Africa to be a global circular economy and not just divided up by, Eritrea, Kenya, Ethiopia. Everything will be all one and all global. And I think that would really help a lot of Bitcoiners.
Like it's totally true what you've said, and one of the beautiful things that like which has really amazed me is like being in this like Bitcoin space, like meeting different Bitcoiners from all over the world, not just like in Africa, like a person like yourself. So like here in Africa, I've had the opportunity to speak like to my brother who you just mentioned, like Kal Kasa from Ethiopia, to a gentleman like Okin in Namibia, like Kogatso, who's the founder of Machankura, which is making it possible just to send and receive Bitcoin using USSD technology. And like actually, like I've like we have had even events like Machankura events and also like Bitcoin Mtaani events where like a beautiful thing happened last year whereby we, myself and a group of Bitcoiners, we went to the Built with Bitcoin school here in Machakos. So that community is kind of a rural setting for where the school is. So after we did some kind of Bitcoin training and everything, at that point in time, Machankura did not exist. So one elderly like gentleman is maybe like in his 70s, like late 70s, was like, okay, like I totally get it. Now I want to buy some. How can I buy some? So it just happened that the guy had a feature phone. He did not have like a smartphone. So like we were like unfortunately like in Kenya we call, like if you want to say an elderly man who's a senior citizen, like a grandpa, you say mzee, a mzee. So you're like mzee, we apologize, but like the only way for you to get to the Bitcoin standard is for you to have um smartphone. But like it warmed my heart going there like 3 months later or 4 months later and actually telling him like today Also, you're not being left behind, and I'll show you how to use Machankura, and I'll send you some sats. So, like in Africa, like we are very, very blessed, and I'm encouraged, like what our brothers like in Nigeria are doing with Kala, the likes of Kina Abubakar, like I've come to meet like even different like. There are two gentlemen actually who are graduated from the first cohort of Kala. They are not even, one is from Cameroon, one is from Uganda, but they chose, after getting that education, they chose to come and live and work here in Kenya. So like those are like guys I interact with like during weekends and everything, and for them like they are proper young developers in the space, and they are, regardless of the projects they are working in, they have actually taken the initiative to actually start developer like classes for people in the Bitcoin space. And like it's very, very encouraging when like across the continent, like everything which is happening, yes, it is early days, but yeah, we have like our OGs like Ray Paxful, like who has been there from day one and everything, and like the amazing job he has done with Paxful. Like I'm privileged to be working with a gentleman. He's a Kenyan actually, but she has been predominantly living and working abroad. He's called her Fizz Banner. Like there are a lot of fantastic like platforms which are being developed, some of which like I can't really talk about here, but yes, it will be like the first international platform that I choose to come and tell you. Like right now, yes, we have something which is innovative, like just the way Machankura was that more innovative. So, like my outlook going forward, specifically for African products and services, like which have been created, and like businesses which are run actually by Africans for Africans solving African problems, my outlook is extremely positive, and the future is very bright in that regard.
Powerful, man. I love that, man. I'm super excited for Africa as well, and just to hear you say these words is just super inspiring, and it just makes me happy to see the continent continuing to push through, no matter the obstacles that are set before them. But Master Guntai, this conversation has been incredible. I learned so much about Kenya. I learned so much about your Bitcoin story. Before we go, can you give people your social media handles and any future endeavors that you might want the audience to know about?
Yeah, but I'll just start by my social media handle, like Master Guantai on Twitter. Predominantly, I live on Twitter, trying to make the move to Nostra, but not yet so much. But majorly on Twitter, it's Master Guantai, but you can also like go to Bitcoin Mtaani or like LinkedIn on Guantai Kathurima. But basically on Master Guantai, my DMs are open. I'm always ready and happy to talk to any Bitcoiners to help and assist in any way that I can to make hyper Bitcoinization a reality in our lifetime. My part, my future plans, yes. There's a project I'm specifically working on under Bitcoin Mtaani, which will make it all that more enjoyable for someone who like Bitcoiners who are like abroad who want to come and visit Bitcoin projects here in Africa. So we'll be announcing that very shortly. And then I'm also privileged to be working with my brother Hafiz Bana, who's also from here in Kenya. So yeah, there is a fantastic platform he has created and everything, and like in just like a couple of weeks you'll have very, very fantastic news. Yes, which will like predominantly a lot of like even like guys who like are in the States and Europe will really benefit from this. It's not only for people in Africa. Yeah.
Yes, Manta Guantaya, thank you, man. I appreciate you taking time to be on the Bitcoin source. Have a good one, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, asante sana.